Our special guest speaker, Markus, is the managing director at Eurovent Middle East. Eurovent Middle East is the association for heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration industry. So today he will be talking about some of the recent trends that are hitting the HVAC industry, also to share a little bit of his views and where the market is leading for the next couple of years. So I hope that Mr. Markus Lattner is online and ready to go ahead.
Thank you. I
Yes.
hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you very well. So with that, I give you the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining and especially for the interest you take in the developments of our industry. My name is Markus Lattner and I am the Managing Director of Eurovent Middle East. And I would also like to thank LG for the opportunity today to share with you thoughts about the impact of COVID-19 on our societies and on our future. Eurovent Middle East is the association of the heating, ventilation, air conditioning and refrigeration industry in the Middle East, of which LG is a founding member. We have been established in 2017 and we are registered and licensed as a non-profit organization under the Dubai Chamber. Our member companies all share a deep interest and concern for the region, and we have joined together to address issues which are relevant to our industry and to society. Some of these core issues include working on policies and educating about indoor air quality, energy efficiency, and standards and regulations. We promote the phase-out of refrigerants with a high global warming potential, want to support governments in market surveillance, and overall try to create a positive impact on people and society. Now, COVID-19 has hugely disrupted our lives globally. It is a strong reminder that what happens in one part of the country can very quickly and severely affect us all around the world. We have to think global and act local. This is also true for other challenges we face like climate change and diminishing natural resources. The economic impact of COVID-19 is huge. There are only a handful of countries who have not seen a decline in the national GDP between 5 and 15% in the first quarter of 2020. Organizations have estimated that the impact on the global GDP is between 4 and 8%. That's quite a huge number, and it is about $10 trillion if we do not see further lockdowns in fall. Then this number will even be higher. This is a number with a lot of zeros and is rather abstract. So I have tried to break it down to a per person basis divided by an assumed global population of 7.8 billion people. If we break it down, that means that every single person on this planet shares about $1,280 per person, every single person in the world. This is huge, and I would like to come back to this number a little later. Let's look at the impact we see on our cities. New York, for example, had a population of 8.4 million people before the pandemic. According to media reports, by August, already 400,000 residents have permanently left the city. Also, according to media reports, the office spaces in New York City have been occupied only by 10% during summer, as the decentralized working style has been becoming the new normal. That has had a devastating effect on the service industry, bringing the unemployment rate up to about 20% in July. We see a similar picture in the UK, where the government has run campaigns to motivate people to return to their offices in order to support the local economies. We have to expect that some of these effects have a permanent and lasting effect on our cities, specifically on their economic prosperity and on commercial real estate, where lower demand will lead to overcapacities and a decline in revenues. Now, some of these effects, long-lasting effects, we can expect on our urban lifestyle and working environments. About 55% of the world population lives in cities, where we spend about 90% of our time indoors. And notably, We do that in aging building stock, with a majority of them featuring substandard ventilation. Information technology has already transformed our working environments quite a lot, and it has done so even more during the pandemic on a faster pace. And while we can imagine that business travel in the future, for example, will decline, if you could switch back to the previous slide, please, still. Thank you. While the business travel can be expected to decline thanks to the new routines of online meetings, the digital nomads will increase, people who can work remotely, and that from every corner of the world. However, crisis is always a chance for change, and I hope that this crisis will enable us to move towards greener cities on a faster pace. Let's remind us for a minute on the role of our industry. Heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration do not only provide comfort. This is an incremental technology for safety, be it fire-related, personal health, or food safety, and enables many industrial processes, be it IT cooling or certain manufacturing processes. But that goes for all segments: residential buildings, commercial spaces, manufacturing facilities, and the whole logistic and supply chain. Without HVACR, modern life is unimaginable. One of these safety aspects of HVACR is indoor air quality. As we spend so much time indoors, remember the figure in the industrialized world is about 90% of our times what we spend in closed spaces. We are exposed to all sorts of pathogens. That's not only viral particles, it's also true for mold, spores, fungi, and fine dust. Buildings need to care for an adequate ventilation system and filtration and air filtration and make crisis-proof. We need to provide better ventilation design, have an active air extraction system. We need to increase our filtration efficiencies and avoid stagnant air in our buildings. Ensuring IQ, ensuring indoor air quality, not only saves lives, it also would ensure that we can continue to operate our buildings during a crisis like this. Now, let me briefly talk also about the second urgent reason why we should address our existing buildings, and that's energy consumption. In the Middle East, 65 to 75% of a building's energy consumption is used for cooling. If we look at the energy saving potential we have, then a minimum of 15% could be achieved with new equipment, with latest technology. Another 15% can be achieved through better installation, avoiding leakages in our air ducts. 10% by design, 10% from operation side could be also achieved. But the single most factor could be maintenance. A study conducted a couple of years ago in the Middle East has looked at 10 existing buildings and calculated the energy savings after doing a maintenance routine according to the specifications of the manufacturers. And this figure showed an average of 28% improvement across the 10 buildings. If we combine all these figures, then we look at about 60 to 80% energy savings, which we could achieve if we readdress those existing buildings and implement better equipment, better standards. That's quite a big number. And if we consider how much CO2 that means for our atmosphere, or how much money that is, which we waste, it's seriously bad. Now, we have two excellent reasons to invest in the past in order to protect our future. If we improve the existing build stocks, we can lower the energy consumption and improve the indoor air quality, which we badly need. There are a couple of initiatives already active on that field. Energy service companies, for example, use private equity to invest in retrofits and then turn the profits from the energy saved. Cooling as a service is another trend which we see coming up across the HVAC industry, where building owners do not invest in the equipment anymore, but take a subscription model and pay for a monthly cooling capacity which they require in their buildings. We also see that certain governments invest in retrofits, incentivize retrofits in order to reduce the load on the national electricity grid and save the money on new power plants. but it needs the joint efforts by government, the industry, and the financial world in order to create policy frameworks and regulations to speed up the process and to retrofit our existing buildings on a faster pace. Now, if you remember the number from before, with the many zeros, the penalty we have to pay for not investing in adequate ventilation and air filtration is many times higher than what the investment in our buildings would have required. With governments rushing to set up emergency funds to rescue their economies, we need to make sure that a substantial part of this money is mandatorily spent on improving our existing buildings. The benefits would be so simple. We strengthen our economy, provide jobs, while at the same time, we make our environment safer. Just the energy savings alone could fund much of these investments. We can bring down the national energy bill and at the same time make sure that we are better prepared for the next viral crisis, which definitely we see somewhere in the future. This is what we as an association will stand for and work on. We have to convince the people in our governments to mandate these investments, provide incentives, and support the building industry. This is also where I would like to call on you, the media, to support us, create the awareness in order to improve our buildings and avoid that such a situation as COVID-19 doesn't repeat itself again. At last, I would like to invite you to reach out to me for further background information or for our industry recommendations related to COVID-19. I would like to thank you again for your attention. Please support us in our activities, support us in creating the awareness on this issue. And thank you for your attention. And I wish you all a great conference today. Thanks to LG again for inviting me to share these thoughts with you. And yeah, please stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much once again, Markus, for your insightful presentation. I believe that the content that he was presenting not only benefited those who are in the HVAC industry, but also for the wider community as a whole. So thank you once again for sharing your insights.